Hey guys, what's up? This is Meathead Mikkel from meatheadgaming.com, and today I want to make a video about a DoT build for the Witch Doctor that I've been working on. And this is definitely a work in progress. I don't have the correct gear to actually make this work as well as I'd like to, but it's going to be a very, very powerful build. And what it centers around is this new passive that you get. I believe you get it at like 64 or so. It's called Creeping Death, where basically Haunt, Locust Swarm, and the Piranha damage amplification lasts almost forever. It does last for a very, very long time, but there are some things to take into account. So basically, this build revolves around casting Locust Swarm, on a single pack, maybe casting it twice if you're not using Pestilence, and then just casting Haunt on everything else and just running around while the dots do their job. They will kill everything, and you're never going to run out of mana, and it's basically like you just cast it once and forget about it. And the piranhas will make taking on elites a lot easier. So instead of showing it to you guys in action, because I'm going to show it to you on regular mobs, elites, and then a boss, I'm going to explain the build first. So this is what you're going to be spamming. You're going to be spamming Haunt because it does a crazy amount of damage, 1465 weapon damage over 6 seconds. And it's with that passive, it's basically an infinite number of seconds. And you can use several runes here. Resentful Spirits is pretty nice if you have like a lot of passive regeneration or resource cost reduction. I don't, so I actually don't use this yet. I use Draining Spirit, because once I cast it on a few enemies, basically my mana pool is going to be regenerating faster than I can actually cast it, so it'll keep you topped off. And this, you just spam it on everything, like one at a time until everything dies. This is a huge damage dealer. Then Locust Swarm. Pestilence is really nice because a single cast will basically spread it to an entire screen of enemies, but at least with my level of gear right now, it still deals damage a little bit too slow. So I'm going for Searing Locust because it's a 1040 weapon damage versus 1480, so this is almost 50% more damage. And these skills can kind of be pretty much whatever you want, with the exception of piranhas. I'm using Zombie Dogs, Leeching Beasts, because the life on hit is really nice for sustain. Spirit Walk, Jaunt for the extra duration. This is just to kind of navigate around elites. It can get pretty crazy inside rifts. And Gargantuan, I use Bruiser because the stun duration is nice, especially against elites. But really, for all three of these, you can use whatever you want. There's a lot of different ways you can make this build work, and so again, it's up to you guys. Piranhas, there's some very nice runes here, and one of the cooler ones is Piranado, because it actually groups up mobs together. It's like a mini Cyclone Strike. But unfortunately, the 16-second cooldown is like, it's a little much. And the other unfortunate part about the Piranado is it doesn't actually drag elites in there. It's only like white mobs, so it doesn't work as well against elites, and you primarily want this for elites. So I am going with, after testing this out a little bit, I'm going with zombie piranhas because they still get the 8-second cooldown. And the important thing to note here is this is what you're going to open up with, because that damage amplification, that 15-second increased damage amplification, is going to last forever with this passive. So you're going to take down elites a lot faster. It's going to give you a huge damage boost. I'm using Pierce the Veil. It's a trade-off. Blood Ritual for extra mana regen, and then Rush of Essence. When you combine this with spamming Haunt, you're going to get crazy mana regen. There's a lot of different passives you can use here, and once you start getting certain legendaries, this is all going to change. But this is kind of like the build that I'm trying out without any legendaries. This is just, like, if you look at my gear, this is just with rares. The only two legendaries, I have this Deathwatch Mantle, which has a nice proc, but the only reason I'm even using it over rare is just because the stat rolls are higher. I don't really care about the proc. Rerolled rare. All this stuff is rerolled, by the way. This is all level 70 gear. And I do still need a better mojo as well. And the only two legendaries, I guess the other two legendaries I'm using is a Sunkeeper that I found, And you know, the only special thing about it is the elite damage and just the fact that just higher DPS. And then I also found this belt where Locust Swarm slows enemies, and this can go up to 80% actually, which this is going to be very, very nice, especially against elites. It works now. It's decent. It's nothing too crazy. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in, and I'll show you guys how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and do this bounty. And this is a build that I'm going to explore further later. So here we go. Here's an elite cast. Cast it. We'll go ahead and get the piranhas going, and then you just spam haunt on everything. And all you have to do is just run around, because everything will die. And you guys can see how quickly my mana pool is regenerating if I just spam haunt on everything. See how quickly it's filling up. And the elites will die eventually. It does take a little bit longer, but you know, I could just stand here and you can see the health going down at a pretty decent rate. So it's a fairly straightforward build. It works really, really well in open areas. It doesn't work as well in corridors, but if you just get like a giant, just a giant open area, which I'll probably show you guys, it works very, very well. And I have done this on Malthael, and it's pretty easy. All you do is you just have to cast literally Locust Swarm once, cast Haunt once, and then just run around, and eventually he'll die. It's not the quickest way to kill him, but you know, that's going to come down to gear, you know, because you can roll. The interesting thing about this build is all the gear pieces can roll like that. They can roll complementary, so you can get Haunt on, like you get Locust Swarm damage on shoulders and chest, and I don't remember the other piece that you can get Haunt damage on, but they're not the same pieces. So you can basically upgrade your Haunt damage and upgrade your Locust Swarm damage on multiple pieces of gear, which is going to make this DoT build incredibly effective with more specific gearing. I'm just out of mats because I've been leveling other characters to reroll the gear accordingly, but it does work out pretty well. So this is just showing you guys how it works on regular mobs, and it works really, really well with these. So open up with piranhas, and then once you cast Haunt on a few enemies, that's when your mana regen starts getting real crazy. All you do is you just literally just keep running around casting on everything. You can cast piranhas again if you like, in case you feel like you haven't gotten it on everything. So let's see how quickly his health goes down. So that's a pretty good rate, and I know this is only Torment 1, but still, that's just you standing there and not actually doing anything. And he goes down fairly quickly. And I'm not going to make this video too long. I don't really want to theory craft too much on this video because, you know, I can theory craft all day, but I don't actually have the gear to make this like super, super efficient, because, you know, once you get a decent amount of damage going, like you get poison damage on bracers, you get your Locust Swarm damage upgraded, then like even Locust Swarm Pestilence, not even the Searing Locusts, is going to give you huge, huge damage against white mobs. And then like you'll basically be able to one-shot your entire screen with a single cast with proper gearing for this, and then the rest of your skills, one of which will be Haunt, one of which will be Piranhas, and then these three can be kind of whatever. Those are going to be specific to elites and bosses. So I don't have my Nemesis bracers. So let's see what another elite looks like in an enclosed area. So you're going to open up with Piranhas, mainly on the main guy. And you do need a certain amount of mitigation. I'm not even using Jungle Fortitude. Torment 1 is fairly easy. But, you know, on some of the other difficulties, you may want to use a damage reduction passive. But once you cast it, you know, you don't have to worry about anything. You can kind of run away. Now, the other thing to note here is, unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, Blizzard kind of set Creeping Death up in a way where it's not overpowered. You know, if you move more than I'd say probably about a couple screens, at least from the testing that I've seen. If you move more than a couple screens away from where you cast it, it'll stop working. And if you die, it stops working. And if you portal to town, it stops working. So it's not like you can, pop into Torment 6, cast it on something, portal back into town, and then 5 minutes later you get the XP from it. It doesn't work that way. I'm sure people have thought about it. I'm sure Blizzard has thought about it, and that's exactly why they kind of put a range limit on this, because otherwise it would be pretty overpowered. So, and Pestilence would work a lot better with this, but unfortunately the damage output is a little low. And so we're getting close to Siegebreaker, and I'm going to show you guys what it looked. There's a slight modification that I use for this build for bosses, and I'm going to show you guys how that works. But this is pretty straightforward. Just cast Haunt, and then that's it. And then I'll just stand here, and they'll all die pretty quickly by themselves. So it's one of those. I don't want to call it an AFK build because it's not, but it has a lot of potential. It's going to be very, very powerful, and there are a lot of items in the game that'll make this just stupid strong. One of them is there's actually a Witch Doctor Helm, which, no pun intended, makes your Locust Swarm and Haunt deal damage in half their duration. Well, because your duration is infinite, it basically doubles your DPS. And when you find that item, that's it. It's going to be, you're going to be doing just silly damage. So let's see what it looks like on a pack of white mobs. And you don't even really have to worry about Haunt. Like, you just stand here and they'll all go down by themselves. The Deathwatch Mantle is a pretty nice proc, but again, I'm only using it for the stats. So for a boss, things are a little bit different because this lasts forever. I don't need Draining Spirit. I don't need mana regeneration because I'm not going to be spamming anything. I'm just going to cast things once. So for this, I'm actually using Consuming Spirit because of the life regen. This is going to give you silly life regeneration. And here I would use for Spirit Walk. You could do kind of anything. I usually go with Healing Journey. And Piranhas, I guess. A good one here is actually Bogdile, but like on Malthael, this doesn't work as well because there's a delay between when you cast it and when the crocodile actually comes out of the water. And Malthael walks around so much, he moves around so much that it never actually hits him. But for Siegebreaker, I would use this. And then again, Bruiser for the stun. Here, again, you don't really need the mana regen, so I would probably use Jungle Fortitude. And then, everything else is the same. Like, I'm sure there are other things you can use here, but I don't really care for it. You could, instead of using these three, you could, like, instead of Spirit Walk, you could probably use one of the kind of higher damage spells that are on long cooldowns, like Fetish Army or Big Bad Voodoo. I don't really care for it. So that's the build modification for bosses. It's basically Consuming Spirit for the life regen, and then Jungle Fortitude for the damage reduction, and then maybe a different rune for Piranhas. So let's take on Siegebreaker real quick. And here, all you're going to do is you're just going to cast the stuff once, and then you're just going to avoid them. So here we go. Boom, and boom. And that's it. I'm done, guys. Now I'm just going to wait until he's dead. There's literally nothing else for me to do here. Except for casting Piranhas every time the cooldown's up. That's going to help kill it a little bit. And I guess I can cast it on these mobs too. I guess that'll probably help, but... if it was a single target like Malthael, then yeah, I would just run around basically and avoid his damage. But here, I would probably spam some other spells. Again, because it lasts forever, like, you don't really have to, cast it that much. So there you go, guys. Very easy fight. In case you haven't noticed, my health stayed topped off the entire time. And I know this is only Torment 1. I want to play around with this build a little bit more. but it's got a lot of potential, guys. So I'm not going to make this video long. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thumbs up if you liked the video, and I will revisit this again when I have better gear. So I'll see you guys soon.